The film starts with Mike, a U.S. Marine, saying goodbye to a young woman at the airport and traveling in a helicopter to his next mission. In the next scene, Mike and his spotter Tommy are on a cliff overlooking a desert, waiting for their target. Tommy likes to talk a lot by nature, whereas Mike has a more serious demeanor. They see people on foot on one side and armed vehicles on the other side approaching each other. Mike's target is a 65-year-old terrorist named Saeed Asif. As Tommy and the radio announcer try to persuade Mike to make the hit, he realizes the group is gathered for a wedding and the target could be the groom's father. The situation becomes more complicated when the groom and bride block the target. Mike is instructed to kill the groom in order to reach the target, but he cannot bear the thought of taking an innocent life. Mike lies to his command center, claiming that he lost the target. Armed men protecting the ceremony spot the duo. Gunfire follows. The target flees, but Mike and Tommy must flee as armed men pursue them. While running, they harm their GPS and hide behind a rock formation. Mike deflects the armed men's attention away from the rock with a clever distraction. After evading armed men, the duo request an evacuation but are told to cross the desert to a village 5 hours away for pickup. They set out on foot, enduring sandstorms and extreme heat. Tommy tells Mike stories about his son from home, which seem to annoy Mike. Tommy prompts Mike to speak up after noticing his silence and apparent discomfort. Mike reveals that he is having a hard time proposing marriage to his girlfriend Jenny. Tommy mocks him for his fear, but also advises him that marriages can be challenging at first, but with time, it becomes easier. While passing through the desert, wind brings a warning sign flying right beneath their feet. Mike takes the sign seriously, recalling that 33 million landmines have been buried in the desert over the past 40 years. Tommy reassures him that it's just a trick to keep enemies away. Mike remains cautious and focused on the warning sign. Tommy casually walks in front of Mike, mocking his tendency to overthink things. A sudden click is heard, followed by an explosion. Tommy had stepped onto a landmine. Mike takes a step towards Tommy and hears another click where his foot just landed. He freezes in shock. The sand from the blast begins to clear. Tommy survived the explosion, but his legs below the knees were amputated. Tommy screams and quivers with pain. Mike, unable to move, tries to calm Tommy down. When all else fails, Mike brings up Tommy's son, which gives him some motivation and he's able to inject himself with the morphine Marines carry in their front pocket. Tommy attempts to reach his radio, but the pain overcomes him. Mike offers to help Tommy by removing his foot from the landmine. Mike speculates that the landmine he stepped on could be old and defunct. Tommy warns Mike not to do it, so he pulls out his gun and points it at his head. After telling Mike that he must survive, he shoots himself. Mike screams helplessly with grief. He is alone in the desert, unable to move. He eventually gets tired of standing and moves to one knee. Mike realizes he needs to retrieve Tommy's radio, which is lying next to Tommy. He ties his shoelace to an axe and pulls the radio bag towards himself. However, he discovers that the radio's battery has died and the spare is on Tommy's body. Mike is dejected, but he comes up with another plan. He creates a temporary solution to charge the radio with solar power. Mike is then able to contact his superiors. He requests immediate evacuation, but is informed that rescue helicopters cannot fly to his location due to frequent sandstorms. If everything goes well, a convoy will rescue him in about 52 hours. Mike becomes frustrated with the response. Mike decides to tough it out and wait for rescue, starting a countdown on his watch. Then, another massive sandstorm hits with force. He waits it out without moving from his spot. After the storm, the protagonist realizes that Tommy's body and spare battery are nearby, but the radio has moved too far away. Hours go by. As Mike runs out of water, he becomes desperate and considers suicide. He then notices a Berber coming towards him, walking in a zigzag. Mike warns about a landmine, but the Berber mocks him. Mike tries to explain his ordeal to the Berber man, but he insists that Mike take the next step. He then grabs Mike's water flask and disappears into the desert. Mike, dehydrated and desperate, drinks his piss when he notices a small Berber girl returning his water flask. She hands it to Mike, who is relieved to find it full of water. Mike quenches his thirst. The girl, using her toy soldiers, appears to tell Mike that he must leave the mine. Mike requests the little girl to fetch his radio as he is unable to move, but she does not understand. Desperate, Mike becomes overly loud, scaring the girl away. As night falls, temperatures begin to drop. Mike starts a fire to keep himself warm. He begins to hear sounds of wild animals. To distract himself, he takes out his phone and scrolls through pictures of his girlfriend. He discovers a video from his girlfriend. In the video, Jenny informs Mike that she is waiting for him. Mike must win the war and return to her as soon as possible. Mike starts to get emotional. He fears he may never see his girlfriend again. Despite his exhaustion, he awakens to discover that the fire has been extinguished. He discovers himself surrounded by wild animals. He attempts to scare them with his gun, but fails. The animals drag Tommy's body away. One animal starts to proceed toward him, but using his torchlight, Mike shoots the animal with his gun. The animal lands on a landmine, causing an explosion that scares away the other animals. When morning arrives, the same Berber man stops by again. He expresses gratitude to Mike for his survival despite encountering a landmine and spending time in the desert with wild animals. He once again suggests that Mike step forward, but Mike refuses. Mike tells him that he probably knows where the mines are because he always walks in the same pattern. The Berber explains that he does not know where the landmines are and prefers to walk in a zigzag pattern for safety reasons. Mike again asks him to fetch his radio. The Berber man finally agrees and returns Mike's radio before leaving. Mike checks his watch, and there are still 24 hours until help arrives. He gradually develops hallucinations. Mike notices Tommy waking up from his death. Mike is motivated by the imaginary Tommy, who assures him that he will survive the situation. As the sun sets, Mike reflects on his mistakes throughout life. He regrets leaving his girlfriend Jenny alone to join the mission. He once again finds himself surrounded by animals. This time, even mine explosions do not deter them. Mike shoots at the animals in the dark, but they continue to attack him. He gets lost in his thoughts as he fights off the wild animals. As the sun rises, Mike again descends back to reality. All the wild animals that attacked him lay dead around him. Mike has been alone in the desert for 45 hours, with his foot over the mine, without moving. The senior informs him that the rescue team is running late. The senior asks him if he can hold out for another 17 hours. Mike, who is already on the verge of breaking down, responds that he cannot continue. The major tells him that there is someone who wants to talk to him. Mike then hears Jenny's voice. Mike apologizes for leaving her. He experiences hallucinations, including seeing Jenny on a couch in the desert. He tries to reach her but gradually loses strength. He begins to collapse when Berber catches him seemingly arriving out of nowhere. The man tends to Mike's wounds and shares his own experience with stepping on a mine that resulted in the loss of his leg. He tells Mike that losing his leg was like losing everything in his life. Despite losing his leg, he found solace in his marriage and daughter. He emphasizes the importance of moving forward regardless of life's circumstances. Mike compliments the man on his daughter's beauty and fatherly smile, stating that he is fortunate to have her. The man tells Mike that he no longer has a daughter. She died in a mine explosion during one of their father-daughter excursions to dig out mines and replace them with tin cans. Mike listens, perplexed. The Berber tells him he's happy his daughter came to meet Mike, but he really needs to move on now. Then, he leaves. Mike sees his daughter again, but she quickly fades away with the wind. Mike starts hallucinating again. He witnesses his abusive father beating his mother while he watched helplessly. He sees his terminally ill mother. He also recalls the wonderful times he had with his girlfriend. He receives a radio call from the rescue team, requesting his exact location. As he prepares to use his flare, he is interrupted by terrorists shooting from the hill above. When Mike shoots, a nearby mine explodes, causing the flare to fly away. Despite his attempts, he is unable to respond effectively, but he remembers his girlfriend and uses that as motivation. Mike uses his gun to shoot at the ground, triggering mine explosions that create sand smoke and shield him from enemies. He then quickly grabs his sniper rifle and takes out the terrorists. Despite the rescue team passing by, the flare remains out of reach. Mike recalls the Berber man saying, "You must keep moving on." He takes a leap of faith and moves forward. There is no reaction or explosion. The mine he stepped on was actually a tin can, likely placed by the Berber's daughter during her lifetime. The villager's words come true. This entire time, the villager told him that he could move forward with his life and go back to his girlfriend. He reminded him that he could do it, and the only thing holding him back was fear. Mike is relieved to be alive despite the non-lethal gunshot wounds he sustained in the standoff. He starts bursting into tears. Maybe he was relieved knowing the fact that he will be saved, or maybe he was angry for not realizing the correctness of the situation. Whatever be the reason, one thing was for sure, this incident would change his life completely, and he had learned a valuable lesson. He then shoots a flare and collapses on the ground. The rescue team locates him and he returns home. Jenny waits for him at the airport, happy tears in her eyes. Before hugging her, he drops to one knee. He proposes and promises not to leave her alone again. Subscribe for more videos like this. Turn on notifications and leave a like to help the channel out. Thank you for watching.